We are on, and it is right now. It is the UFC 304 Fight IQ podcast coming to you, breaking down a whopping 14 fight card headlined by, well, I was going to say two title fights, but I guess we're calling it an interim title fight as well as an actual title fight, the latter of which being Belal Muhammad versus champion Leon Edwards for that welterweight strap. I am, of course, Chris Olson here as your host with the two trusty compadres as always. First, never a burden to anyone. Of course, it is Drake. Drake, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, man. I just talking a little bit before, and I do think this is a pretty solid card. Maybe one that we're not giving enough credit to for the main card, but the UFC deserves that for burning us so many times. So we will see what we get, and also, of course, we cannot forget Joe Sun Tzu at the bottom of your screen there, cloaked in a little bit of darkness, but it's good. It gives a nice brooding atmosphere to the pod, and I like it. Joe, how are you? And how you feeling about the card this week?
I've always said that I've done some of my best work in the dark.
Oh,
Yeah. Look, before we start this, I have to get a little serious, and it's not something I do too often, especially on this podcast. But if anybody is, I don't know how many viewers we currently have right now, but this MMA community that we have, I mean, it is a community. I mean, maybe it's grown larger over the course of the last few years, but and I do remember the time when I knew every content creator. It was that small of a community. And, there are some OGs in the business and people have been involved for a long time. And one of the OGs is a guy that goes by the name DFS by the numbers. His name is Brady. He also does a podcast with Uncle Weezy, which is, I think it has to be the first podcast of the week for a card. These guys actually get together on a Sunday night and put a pod out for the following card. When to me that's so incredibly difficult. I mean, you don't have a lot of information at your disposal other than the research that you've done and the fights that you've watched, and just I know after a card, I'm up for 6 hours, I'm building lineups. That's not what I want to do on a Sunday. So my point being is, Brady was on Twitter earlier in the day, and he's going through some really serious stuff. And, I opened my DMs, and, anybody else out there, just, wish Brady well. And, hopefully what he's going through, he gets better. And, he's a real value to the community and the industry. And, Brady, just hang in there, buddy. There's help. Whatever you need, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. I'll share some experiences I had. But that's the public service announcement. I like this card. I think there's some interesting betting opportunities on the card. I have been playing a lot more. I know this is a DraftKings pod, but I've been playing a lot more on the wagering side than I have on DraftKings. DraftKings has gotten so incredibly difficult. And I opportunistically, I'm still playing DraftKings, but I would have to say I'm probably 80% of what I wager on a card now is more on the betting side. And that's just now that may change if I start seeing things a different way, but I do like this card. I see some really good bets on this card. And, I feel bad for the fighters that they have to fight between 11 PM and 5 AM. But I do think it's a pretty good card. You've got an interim title fight. You've got a title fight. And you've got some interesting prelims. You got your usual cadre of English fighters on this card, a couple European fighters. But I do think it's an interesting card.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting card, and I get you can make an argument that that interim title is just going to become the heavyweight title at a certain point because Jones is going to just retire, and then whoever wins this is going to. So in a way, you can say you got two title fights, but I'm not going to let him off the hook. We're going to call it the interim fight, and we are going to get to every fight on that card. But first, I want to say that if you want to try out 10 days free of RotoWire, you go to rotowire.com/free. That's rotowire.com/free. No credit card required. You take a look at all their content. Baseball back from to the second half, of course. Football coming right around the corner. Getting all your draft ready. We got all our draft kit stuff that you can look at, all our rankings, cheat sheets, all that good stuff, all the content. So if you want to try it out, again, www.com, rotowire.com /free. All right, having said all of that, we are going to get into the card now. And just realized I didn't have the card open on DraftKings. It's my professionalism, but we are going to start with. Oh, come on. Sorry, technical difficulties. As we said, that was plaguing some of us from the start of this, and is unfortunately here. I might do something else. 1 second.
You have the bout order?
I apologize. No, I'm trying to open the DraftKings lobby, and it's not opening. So
what's the first fight, Chris?
Is it
Bannon and Ardelene?
Bannon and okay. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go by it's Shauna Bannon versus Alice Ardelene. Minus 187 for Bannon, plus 162 for Ardelene, and now I think that might have been just DraftKings for a second. I'm gonna blame them anyway. It's Bannon 8,900, Ardelene at 7,300, and when I watched tape on this fight, I resolved. I said I'm just gonna take the underdog. I don't know who the underdog is yet, but I'm just gonna take the underdog. And it turned out it was Ardelene by a pretty wide margin, which I'm not sure I understand. Bannon is a credentialed kickboxer. She's very fluid. We saw that in her UFC debut, but she's really unpolished, just a very, very unpolished. Was charging forward with strikes in a straight line. Bruno Brazil could just angle off and counter strike, and really just had her way the whole fight. And Ardelene is, not a finished product by any means. In fact, for some reason, her quality of competition has gone way down of present. Her last victory was a 0-win fighter. She's actually fought in Weili Zhang in her career, which is interesting. Lost, of course, but she is extremely aggressive. She can I don't know if wrestle is the right word, but she can trip. She has a trip game. She has good elbows, good ground and pound. And honestly, I just expect the MMA experience. I mean, if you can call a 9-5 fighter the most experienced fighter in the fight, especially with her level of it, but I just expect this experience to carry her. Bannon has some skills, but is extremely unpolished, as I said. So I can't pick her here, especially as a favorite, especially as a sizable favorite. None of it makes much sense to me. So I'm going with Ardelene, and I think we will start off. Well, Joe's shaking his head, so I'm going to make him stew over there, and I'm going to make him wait a second. So Drake, how do you see this fight?
Yeah, no, I'm actually in the same boat as you. I don't trust either one of these fighters, and it is completely dog or pass for me. If this stays upright, yeah, Bannon should have this easily. I don't think she scores well. I don't think she knocks out Ardelene. I think the biggest advantage for Ardelene is that if she can get it to the ground, she should be able to keep it there. I don't like this fight at all. Like I said, it's dog or pass for me.
Yeah, dog or pass for me too. I do think the thing about Ardelene is she likes to just get in there and scrap. So I think she's going to make it something, and that could really, especially at 7,300, I think is a pretty good price. But Joe is still has his face like he ate some bad shellfish. So Joe, how do you see this fight?
Only one of these two women is an actual fighter. Ardelene is a Romanian TikTok star. She has 500,000 followers. She does crazy comedy videos that don't make sense to anyone outside of Romania. She fights mostly exhibitions or women with nonsensical records. I am not a fan of the favorite here either. I think this is a great fight to pass or maybe even start the card late. But only one of these women actually trains full time as a fighter. And for that reason, I'm going to go with the favorite.
Joe, just to add on to that real quick, I don't disagree with that at all. I don't know why Ardelene got this fight. I tried to figure it out. and I couldn't. There was
You
nothing.
know, well, I think they figure she's got 500,000 TikTok followers in Romania, right? The UFC, and she's not even like one of the better women's fighters in Romania. Like, you know, if that tells you anything, you know. So that's the only thing I could think of is that they, you know, the influencers, you know, social media, you know, 500,000 followers, I guess, is decent, and maybe that's why she got the fight.
Yeah, but my concern with passing is I think it has the potential to just be like a slop fest where they just like swing at each other, and if that happens, it can produce some points. So I think it's worthy of a look, but I understand not wanting to have anything to do with it, just because A, the card is so large, and B, the level of competition on both sides is so bad. So definitely understand that side of it too. And dear God, can we please leave this fight? Not that the next one is too much better, but we're getting progressively better. I promise. It is Mick Parkin at 9,100 taking on Lucas Brzeski at 7,100. Line on this fight: Parkin at -350, Brzeski at +285. And I mean, I don't like any of these fighters either. So we're 0 for 4. But I think Parkin at least has a game plan when he goes in, and he at least knows how to carry a fight for 3 rounds, despite being a big kind of heavyweight. And Brzeski doesn't. Brzeski is just kind of sloppy and kind of more agile than your average heavyweight, which doesn't really help him just because he's so open to be hit, and then he's so easy to take down, 36% takedown defense rate, which is just atrocious. Parkin doesn't wrestle a lot, but he does have that one fight where he scored 3 takedowns. At 9,100, if he goes to his wrestling, you could get a little more out of this than you might think. Parkin hasn't really met his salaries yet. If he's going to do it at any time, it's going to be in this fight, just because Brzeski is so bad and leaves so many holes and has so many point-scoring opportunities for his opponents. So my pick is Parkin, but again, let's just say not one of the fights I'm looking forward to. Joe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Parkin for the cardio. Tom Aspinall's training partner. He's done some sparring with Tyson Fury. You know, again, he's young by heavyweight standards. I think he's like 28. You know, it's sort of the lesser of two evils. You know, home crowd. I think he could be a sneaky lower owned play just because of the, you know, it's a 14-fight card. On the other hand, you know, if this goes to decision, if this is one of those sloppy heavyweight fights that goes to decision, it could be very low scoring. So, I mean, I would look at this as a contrarian play only. You know, I certainly wouldn't core it, but I'll take Parkin here.
Right, yeah, and that's actually what I had written in my article was I kind of like Parkin as a contrarian pay up, but you know your miles may vary, and beware that this could just be another slow heavyweight slog. Drake, how do you see this one?
Same exact way, except I think we get to see Parkin's first UFC knockout. I just think that over the course of 3 rounds, Brzeski's going to get overly exhausted with the amount of pressure that Parkin's going to put on him. And it won't, I don't think it's going to be a first round knockout. I think it could be end of round 2, early round 3 that we see it happen. But I do think that he, you know, wins this pretty handily.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I did see a potential for Parkin to score big here. And like I said, I think if it doesn't happen here, it's not going to happen for Parkin in terms of DraftKings. So I do think that's a shot worth taking. And I think that you're going to get some nice scarcity if you do indeed do that. Now we're going to move on to Sam Patterson at 9,300, taking on Kiefer Crosby at 6,900. Line on this fight: Sam Patterson -450, Kiefer Crosby +335. And I don't know how anybody could trust Sam Patterson at that price, really. First fight we saw against a much shorter opponent, expected to walk over him, throws a blind kick, gets absolutely floored. Then against Linese there, drags him to the mat. Not really a takedown, just sort of drags him down in a headlock, and then goes for the submission. On the other end, you know, I actually like Kiefer Crosby a decent amount as a fighter. I like his pressure. I like his body work. I like the fact that he's fluid with his hands. He's got some power. He got subbed way too easily in his own UFC debut. Almost like he didn't expect his opponent to go for a submission, which is fair enough because he's not really a submission fighter, but still no attempt to fight the hands. Got to be a little troublesome. Again, he's going to be at a very substantial, in fact, I believe a much more substantial 8 inches, I believe, reach disadvantage here against Patterson. And Patterson leaves himself so upright. It's just every time somebody swings, it's gonna be heart's gonna be in your throat if you're picking a Sam Patterson. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Crosby. Get back on the Crosby train here slightly, even though that submission was a little too easy for my taste, and I'm not that comfortable with it. I just can't trust Patterson as a big favorite. There's just no way. So I'm going to go ahead and take Crosby here. This can be a fight that finishes very early, and you can get points one way or the other. So open that up and have both sides of it. But my pick has to be Crosby, and I think here we're going to start with Drake. Drake, how do you see this one?
Man, Chris, what's going on? We're agreeing with 2 dogs.
I know it's too much. Too much.
Man. Yeah, no, I'm all over Kiefer Crosby in this one. I don't trust Patterson at all. He is a very sloppy fighter. And my only concern is that submission, because Crosby was submitted very easily. I don't think we'll see that same type of thing in this fight. But Crosby's easily the better striker. And striking wise, what you said, he was winning that fight. It was just until that sloppy mistake, and I don't think we see that same mistake in this one. So I love Crosby.
Yeah, I still like him a fair bit too. I do think before that sub he was having a bit of trouble closing the distance. I worry about that a little bit too, but I'm with you. I like Crosby as well. If not for, I think he's going to collapse the pocket, and when he does, Sam Patterson's not going to move his head. So that can only mean good things. But what about you, Joe? How do you see the second fighter?
Yeah, so I remember when Patterson made his UFC debut and burned so many people, DraftKings, myself included, because he's a pretty sizable favorite, and he got planted by Asmus. Look, I think this is actually a pretty good matchup for Patterson, just for the reason you mentioned. The fact that he's got he won his last fight by sub. Crosby just is coming off of a sub. Home crowd. I don't expect that I would get to too much of Patterson on DraftKings, but I would not be surprised if Patterson won by sub. So there's other dogs on this card that I like, so I don't feel like I need to extend myself here on Crosby. So let me go with Patterson here.
Yeah, I can see either way. I don't trust either of these guys, I guess, but I think I trust Crosby slightly more, especially if it's going to be a firefight the whole way. And I do apologize. I think I said the second fight. That was the third fight. And here comes the fourth fight. It is Muhammad Mokaev at 8,400 taking on Manel Kape at 7,800. Line on this fight, Mokaev minus 174. Manel Kape plus 149. And if you've been keeping track on social media, this is one of the more heated rivalries this week. They fought in the back earlier this week. Then at the ceremonial weigh-ins, they got into it again. Manel Kape just seems to want to dust up with everybody. Thankfully, he's actually getting in the ring this time. So we're looking forward to that. As far as the fight goes, I've been waiting for Manel Kape to face like a dogged wrestler, because when he was in Horizon, this would happen to him a lot, where he would get stuck on it. He would get stuck on his back, and he would have a hard time navigating, at least for that round. He hasn't really fought a lot of committed wrestlers yet, and now he gets maybe one of the most committed wrestlers in the sport. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he takes advantage of that. He does have a decent submission game. It's more opportunistic than anything else. We know that Mokaev is not exactly the tapping kind, and I have to pick, especially at this price. Mokaev, he averages more than 5 takedowns per fight, so you have to go with him here at 8,400. It's just too much. Kape could spark him out there, but I can't pick it because we haven't seen Mokaev bend to anything. We know how tough he is, and it's going to take a lot. And Kape hasn't been in there, certainly hasn't been in there with an opponent like this who's really going to up the tempo, really going to up the pressure. And I just have to take Mokaev here. The price is almost a little too good to be true. We'll see what happens with that. But I think 8,400 is great, and I'm all over Mokaev. And Joe, we'll start with you. How do you see this one?
Yeah, Mokaev all the way here. I think one of the better plays on DraftKings. This is a pretty good matchup for him as long as he can get his wrestling working. I don't think that Kape is going to be any danger to him on the ground. Yeah, there's some danger that he gets struck, but to your point, like he would have tapped to some subs that were planted on him, Mokaev, in the past, and he didn't. So I really don't know that, Kape is going to be able to knock him out, at least before. I'm sorry, I don't know that Kape is going to be able to knock Mokaev out, at least before Mokaev gets his wrestling working. And I could see him just grinding out, a decision here and getting a lot of control time, getting multiple takedowns. I don't know if he'll finish him, but I do see that he could score pretty well, especially at his price. I like him for DraftKings.
Yeah, I think the price is a layup. I mean, if he wins this fight, it's 104 easy, like minimum. So I love the price here, but let's see if someone else also loves the price. Drake, how do you see this one?
3 for 3.
All right.
Mokaev is easily one of my favorite plays on the slate. Like Joe mentioned, the only worry that I have is that potential, strike that could put Mokaev down. But I think it's going to be another instant, forward pressure, takedown, sit on top, or get the back. We've seen Mokaev do it multiple times. I don't think it's going to change in this fight.
Yeah, I see no reason to either. And we know that Kape can do that one strike knockout, but I don't see it as a given. Like I don't see him as some kind of killer finisher that we really need to be concerned about. So I think we all love Mokaev, and we will all cry very hard if he somehow does get upset here. But I will move on to the next fight, which is Preston Parsons at 8,600 taking on Elliott at 7,600. Line on this fight: Preston Parsons minus 140, Elliott plus 120. And you know what? This is another price I love. So we're going back to back here. Speaking of the favorite again on Parsons, Elliott, like I wrote in my article this week, you would be hard pressed to find a less impressive win than Elliott's over Val Woodburn. This is a guy who is supposed to steamroll a very powerful, very athletic, but extremely flawed fighter in Val Woodburn. Not only does that not happen, he almost gets knocked out in the first couple of minutes trying to brawl. Then when Val Woodburn is incredibly tired and you think, okay, now it's going to get easy, he starts stuffing takedowns and getting reversals, Val Woodburn does. So if you're going to fight like that, I can have zero confidence in you against a guy who doesn't have those, certainly isn't as powerful or athletic, but does not have those kind of rough edges like a Val Woodburn does. And Oban backs up straight when he's getting hit. And it's just, there's a bunch of things about him I don't like. He's a good control grappler, a good back taker. That's about it. And I don't think that gets it done, especially against a wrestler in himself in Preston Parsons there. So I'm all over Parsons there too in a big way. So it's 2 for 2 on the moderately priced favorites who I think can really break the bank here. But Drake, are we going to continue our agreements here?
We absolutely are. And
oh my
I'm
goodness.
tell you this, Preston Parsons is, as far as pricing goes, is my favorite play on the entire slate.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think that he could end this fight early, but even if he doesn't, in my article, I noted that Parsons had 4, 3, and 7 takedowns with a combined 20 minutes of control time over his last 3 fights. That is like DFS heaven. And I don't see it. I don't see how Elliott can do anything except for potentially snatch his neck to stop him coming forward and keeping him down. I absolutely love Parsons in this fight.
Yeah, me too. Apologies if I was elsewhere there. I had to ban an absolute loser that was in the chat. So, okay, so we're going to go to Joe here. Joe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I love Parsons as well. I mean, I'll complete the trifecta here. I think this is a great matchup for him. I don't understand. I honestly don't understand the money coming in the other way. I think this line is a steal. You go out and jump on this and bet this straight, or anchor Parsons in your parlays. I really like Parsons a lot.
Yeah, I am. I know. It's just one fight, and you can tell me he was stiff, or you can tell me, but you have to show me something to to make me trust you the next time. And Elliott just didn't do it. So same thing all over Parsons. Really think if you're making cash lineups, you start with Parsons and Mokaev. Like I really think that those are your pillars there, and I think they work in. The Brit, I didn't do that on purpose, but sure, the Brits do love the sport, that's for sure. But yeah, I do think that I definitely think they are pillars for cash game, and they work for tournaments too. So it works out both ways, and they are great plays. But we're going to move on to the next fight, which is Modestas Bowkus at 8,500, taking on Marcin Prachnio at 7,700. Line on this fight. Bowkus minus 155, Prachnio plus 133. And I never thought, when Prachnio came in here marching forward to get absolutely crushed by Sam Alvey, that one day I would be picking him to win a fight. And I think that Prachnio, if he can string a couple together here, he's going to be a pretty notable story just in the way he turned his career around. Like, I really think that he's a functional fighter now. If you watch him, I expected Devin Clark to kind of walk all over him with the wrestling and the power. It just didn't happen. And I think the reason it didn't happen was because he's kind of reverted back to that point karate style where he just goes darts in and out, goes really fast, switches stances, and it's hard for fighters to get a read on him. His knockouts might decrease. I mean, he came in as this big powerhouse killer be killed, so that might take a seat. But as long as he's the underdog, we don't have to worry about that, and we can just kind of pick him to win as the underdog in these spots, and either get our 83 for cash, or if he gets that knockout, hey, that's great too. Bowkus, he's powerful, but I feel like he's a guy who needs to use his speed in these matchups. He's usually the quicker guy. He's not going to be the quicker guy this time, and if he's not the quicker guy this time, I really don't see where his strength is going to come from. I know he can wrestle and grapple somewhat of himself, but I was amazed watching Marcin Prachnio stuff every single takedown from Devin Clark and then get one of his own. So I feel like we're looking at a completely new fighter here. Yes, he's traded some of that knockout power, but what he's gained is much, much more valuable to himself and also to us playing DFS and betting. So I am taking Prachnio here as the small underdog. And I think we are going to start with Joe. How do you see this one, Joe?
Not a fight that I looked at too closely, but I'm going to go with Bowkus. I'm going to go with the slight favorite here. I just think he's a little better fighter. I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I don't love this fight at all. But I will go with Bowkus here for no reason other than the fact I think he's slightly better than Prachnio, or maybe even to Prachnio. I don't know. It's not a fight. Right. Honestly, it's not a fight I looked at very closely.
All right. I mean, I understand not really, like, Prachnio still having that reputation for you, and so you just being like, okay. And then Bowkus, the guy who, won his first UFC fight when his opponent almost fell out of the cage. So a bunch of weird stuff going on here. But Drake, how do you see this fight?
Chris, we're just on a roll, man.
We are melding. It's crazy.
Now, I did a little more research than Joe did because Joe didn't do any. Bowkus has a reach advantage in this one. It's 4 inches, but I don't think it's going to play a part because Bowkus sucks at using it. He also doesn't throw anywhere near his strikes. And Joe, to try to sway your mind, so Prachnio has led striking in his last 6 fights.
And I'm easily swayable, by the way.
In all 6 fights, he has led in striking. And in his last fight, like Chris mentioned, he stuffed the takedowns. So I don't think takedowns are going to be a worry in this fight. After 15 minutes, because I don't see a knockout happening, he's going to lead in striking. He will have the volume advantage, which tells me that he's going to have more than likely a decision win. I don't expect a high score out of this one for DFS, but I do like Prachnio as a sneaky dog play.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree. I don't expect a high score. If he does find that kill shot, gravy. Otherwise, I'll take my 83, 84, and I'll run home with it. And I think that's fine. But we will move on now. It is Callan Longren at 8,700 taking on Jake Hadley at 7,500. Line on this fight. Longren at minus 215. Hadley at plus 178. And Colin Longren, not all that dissimilar from Kiefer Crosby in the way he kind of comes forward, works body, works head, is powerful, has a power wrestling game. Jake Hadley, as far as I know, the only thing we've really seen from him in the UFC is slick on the ground, but he doesn't have a great wrestling game. He tried as hard as he could against Charles Johnson. I don't even think he got him once. If he got him once, it was Charles Johnson popping right back up. And beyond that, I don't really know what he's going to do here because when he gets pressured, he gets flustered. When he gets flustered, he gets hurt. We saw that in the Charles Johnson fight when he got knocked down late in that fight. And I think Longren has a really good style for the bottom half of this division. Like I said, with the pressure, with the power wrestling game, even though we might not see it so much here. I like Longren. Jake Hadley, I had some higher hopes from him when he came in because on the regional scene, I think he showed a more effective wrestling game. We really haven't seen that here. So I can't pick Jake Hadley because I don't really know where his skill set is. So I'm picking Longren. I think it's a decent-ish play. Not so keen on this fight for DraftKings. I think maybe this devolves into kind of a kickboxing match for 15 minutes and then we see it out. Or I think Longren could, just as a stronger man, like press him against the cage and then we get some boring minutes that way. But the pick is Longren, and I think we start with Drake this time. And okay, so Drake, how do you see this one?
So this is another one I'm pretty heavily on the favorite. Longren showed a lot in his last fight, and I think we just see more of it. What Hadley has shown me is absolutely nothing. He gets put on his back, he accepts it, he stays there, he can't get up, he can't strike. I don't really know at this point what he can do. At one point I thought, when he won those back-to-back fights against Candelario and Gordon, I was like, okay, you know what, maybe he's coming around. And then he lost. He got smoked by Durden, and then he lost to Charles Johnson, which was pretty much it for me. I have no faith in Hadley. I think Longren is the bigger fighter. I think he's the better fighter, and I think he just completely dominates the fight everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that strength issue that you alluded to is going to be one of the bigger factors here because if Hadley does have a chance, it's going to be in those scrambles on the ground and in those tie-ups, and I just don't think he's going to be able to get a lot done there because of that strength disadvantage. But Joe, how do you see this fight?
Yeah, so Hadley has no plan B. Like if things don't go his way, which they haven't in the UFC, and also it's important to note that this fight is I believe up a weight. I believe this is at 135 when he's had a hard time making 125. So there's no way he's going to be able to bully Longren. He's a tank, right? So that was always his strength, was the fact that Hadley could bully guys, being bigger than them typically. But this guy is a tank. Even though Hadley is got a 1-inch height advantage, this guy is probably as wide as he is tall. So I like Longren here. I think he could put Hadley away, honestly. I think it's this mid-range in DraftKings is so much better, in my opinion, than the upper range, right? Yeah. Nathan Wood, I have no idea what that guy's going to do. Aspinall, well, we're going to talk about that fight, so I don't want to bury the lead. But, I like McCann a little bit, but, I think the mid-range is really strong this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that there's a lot of plays in there, like I said, can pillar your cash games. I'm not sure if Longren is that per se, but he's definitely a play to look at, and I definitely agree that the mid-range is strong. And I think, in fact, I'm sure that me and Drake are going to get our first disagreement here, but it is Molly McCann at 9,200 taking on Bruno Brazil at 7,000. Line on this fight, it is Brazil at plus 270. See, you see which way my mind's going. I said the dog first. It's McCann at minus 320, and then Brazil at plus 270 coming back. And if you haven't been able to guess, I am taking Brazil. It's tepid. I'm not in love with it, but I'm just not in love with Molly McCann either. I'm not. And I don't like the fact that we always have to pay big prices for her. And sometimes that's great. Look, if she wins, she's going to score because she tries to take over fights. That's what she does. She's an action fighter. So if she does, she'll probably get that 100, 101, 98 kind of score. But I just, similar to Jake Hadley, I just don't know what she does that well. She's an okay boxer. She'll wrestle when her opponent can't grapple, and then she has the grappling advantage, but otherwise she gets dominated in grappling. Bruna Brazil is a decent grappler, so I think it'll be interesting to see what they do on the ground. I think that Bruna Brazil is I wouldn't say a better boxer, but I think she's probably more defensively responsible than Molly McCann is. I do think Molly McCann is going to try to bring this to a war. I'm going to go ahead and trust that the counter striking of Bruna Brazil is going to do a lot of work here. And, we're in maybe the wrong place for this because Molly McCann is going to come forward, and we've seen just aggression win fights over effective striking constantly, especially recently. But I just can't pick Molly McCann at this price, especially in a 14-fight card with all these other fighters we talked about. I guess let me say I am a hater. I'm the biggest hater, but I am taking Bruna Brazil, and this one we will start with Joseph. Joe, how you doing?
Yeah, Chris, you're delusional here, unfortunately. Yes, she trains with the fighting nerds, but this is not going to be a win for them. Everybody who fights her takes her down. A 105 kickboxer, Loma Lukaby, and I know her because she's the only Thai fighter in the UFC, right? Took her down. This is such a perfect matchup for Molly McCann. And by the way, Molly McCann in England, you don't think the UFC is going to lob her a softball? Also, Molly McCann looks so much better at strawweight than she has. Like she had muscle on her that you've never seen before. All she has to do is take down Brazil, and she's going to win this fight. I don't even think Brazil's striking is any better. I just see that this is, the UFC essentially. Molly McCann is a fan favorite, right? Love her or hate her. She's a fan favorite. She realized after she lost 2 fights at 125 that she had to make a change. No more drinking proper 12, no more hanging out at the pub, right? Let me cut some weight. Let me fight at 115. That is her true weight class. I think she's going to dominate here. And honestly, I hate to say this, but this could be one of my favorite plays at 9K or above, right? I really think that, this meatball has actually learned how to roll. I think she's going to use her wrestling. She's going to take her down, maybe even get a finish here. But we've seen McCann put up some huge scores in females that she dominated. And I think this is such a perfect matchup for Molly McCann. Like, you could not have looked in the UFC encyclopedia of fighters and picked out someone better for Molly McCann to fight at home than Bruna Brazil. So sorry, fighting nerds. I love you guys. You took an L last week. You're going to take an L this week. Sorry.
That is the one thing we do agree on, is that she scores well in her wins. So I'm not advocating passing her completely, of course, but can't trust her either, unfortunately. But Drake is going to tell us why we can trust her. So go ahead, Drake.
Oh, everything that Joe said is right there. This is a perfect matchup for Molly McCann. And, I think all you have to do is look back at the Brazil Gomez fight, and you have everything that you need to know. Gomez fights a similar way that Molly does. She likes to charge forward. She likes to use her hands, and she likes to take down. And I think that we'll see the exact same thing. It's a beautiful blueprint, and I think McCann scores well over 100 for DFS.
Yeah, she will in the win, but still not trusting her. Sorry. So I will go with Brazil there, and we will see how it shakes out. I do think probably the winner scores big either way, and I think we can agree on that. But for now, we are going to move to where are we? There we are. It is Nathaniel Wood at 9,500 taking on Daniel Pineda at 6,700. Line on this fight. Wood minus 400, Pineda plus 300. Line is way too big. I don't like it at all. I do think Nathaniel Wood is going to win. Daniel Pineda rather can still crack. He's kind of a one-strike power striker. He can wrestle a little bit. And I think otherwise these two guys are just going to try to stand on a napkin in the center and trade until one of them falls. And so for that reason, I'm not sure you can price Wood quite so high. I think this is going to be an extremely live fight with both guys throwing big heat and potentially getting rocked, and Pineda maybe using his wrestling. I'm going to take Nathaniel Wood. I think the fight's closer just by virtue of the way Nathaniel Wood fights and that Thai style, the way it puts him in danger, the way he gets kind of flat-footed in the pocket there. But like I said, I think the pick is Wood. 9,500's a big salary. Pineda, it seems weird. Like, you think of him as this guy who gets hurt a lot. Only 3 KO, TKO losses in, I think, 42 fights, 45 professional fights, something like that. So he has been very durable, and it just kind of worries me. I'm going to have some Pineda here just because I think this is going to be a firefight. But the pick will be Nathaniel Wood, and we'll go to Drake first. Drake, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I agree. I've got Wood winning. I just think that he's the better overall fighter, and that includes the ground game. I think he's the better wrestler. I think he's the better striker, and I definitely think he's got better pocket presence. The only thing, anytime you have a fight that features Daniel Pineda, you have to worry about him finishing, his opponent. He's got 28 wins and they're all by finish, and he can do it in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, it is a risk. I think it is more of a GPP type play, especially with Wood being so high. It's going to take a lot for him to pay that off. I'm not sure that he does, and without chaining some takedowns or an early finish in the first or second round, but Wood is the play.
Yeah, no, agreed. Joe, I know you expressed reservations about Nathaniel Wood before. Why don't you expand on that for us?
I don't think I could say it any better than Drake did. I mean, I don't love Wood at 145. I don't honestly think he's ever going to be a contender at 145. I think he's undersized. Pineda has got 7.5 minutes of cardio. I think if anyone's looking for a GPP flyer, go with Pineda. I mean, here's a guy that did good in PFL until he got busted for supplements that were illegal. But he's been in some really, really active and interesting fights in the UFC. So 7.5 minutes of cardio, maybe that's enough. I don't love Wood at his price point. I won't be playing much, if any, of him, but I will take a few flyers and GPPs on Pineda in case he can go out there and blitz and get it done.
Yeah, I think that's well said too. I think the consensus that we have here is kind of the way this has to be played. And I do enjoy the firefight, and it's kind of fun for me to think that that this fight could really set the tone for the card, or rather, explode the card, especially if Pineda wins there. But we are going to dig deeper into the main card now. But before we do that, we're going to take a little break for our podcast-only listeners, and we will be right back. And we are back. Okay, we're going to continue with the card now. Thank you all for hanging around. We'll jump right back in with Arnold Allen at 9,000, taking on Giga Chikadze at 7,200. Line on this fight, Allen at minus 213, Chikadze comeback plus 183. And I do think Allen's going to win. It's hard for me to call this a DFS fight in any stripe. Kind of feel like this is just going to be 15 minutes of kickboxing back and forth. Both guys are unbelievably tough. I believe neither one has ever been knocked out. I don't think either one has. So that makes it really hard to say, okay, well, this is a fight that's going to score well, particularly since, Arnold Allen has a wrestling game, doesn't really use it, hasn't scored a takedown in his last 4 fights. So we can't rely on that. Giga Chikadze 70% takedown defense rate. Anyway, not fantastic, but very solid. So I don't think a wrestling game is going to be in the cards here. I think this is going to be a fun fight in the sense that they're going to go back and forth at range for 15 minutes. But I don't really think it's a DraftKings fight, especially not a GPP fight. The pick is going to be Allen just because I think his movement is going to confuse, and I think he's going to sort of out agile the more stationary Giga Chikadze there. But like I said, Allen is the pick. But if there was a fight on this huge card where, I'm not really feeling it, maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one where I'll sit it out most of the time. But we'll start with Drake first. Drake, how do you see this one?
Yeah, you kind of summed it up nicely. It was tough for me to actually choose a side for this fight. I settled on Allen because I think he is the better overall striker. What it came down to for me is Chikadze. We all know he likes his leg kicks, and I mean, between the leg kicks or Allen sitting in the pocket, I think that Allen will spend more time in the pocket connecting than Chikadze will spend on the outside connecting kicks. And so that kind of is what did it for me. I don't see a big score coming from this. I think it's going to be a lot of each other kind of just measuring each other out for the first, few minutes. And then it's going to be just a small back and forth affair of nothing but strikes. And I know, unless they get 150 strikes, which I don't see happening, it's not going to score well.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of a, if you're playing prize picks, this is an over for the significant strikes, I think, because this is just going to keep going, and I think most of it's going to take place in the center. Joe, how do you see this fight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this fight for DraftKings either. I think Allen will win, but look, Giga Chikadze, I think Allen could actually win this fight easily if he uses his wrestling. Giga has not been in against wrestlers in quite some time, and in terms of striking, I think Calvin Kattar shortened his life by about 10 years. I mean, I was on Kattar in that fight. I think he was an underdog. I thought that was like the easiest money that I ever made. Giga got beat so badly. I think he's only fought once a year since that fight, and he's pulled out of several fights. So I don't know where his head is at. I mean, I think his last fight was kind of a soft fight for him. I think Allen is tough. Look, Allen is very technical. He spent a lot of time at TriStar. For those of you that don't know, TriStar has always had the reputation of training point fighters. And that's kind of the kind of fighter Allen is. Like, he doesn't overextend himself. He doesn't get wild. He fights very disciplined. He doesn't go for finishes. I think he'll just, win a point decision here, probably pretty clearly. If he threw in a few takedowns, it would probably not be the worst thing in the world because Giga is a kickboxer. And wrestling could really help Allen out. But even if he doesn't, I think he could win a 15-minute striking affair. However, I don't see a lot of points coming out of this fight. Unless something happens that I don't expect. This is not a fight I looked at either side of for DraftKings. Unless you're building, north of 20 lineups, I think you could just probably pass on this fight.
Yeah, I think so too. I think absent, either Drake said the piling on the strikes or the flash knockout. I don't think this one scores very well. I also think Giga's a little bit better on the ground probably than we think. I still remember that Jamal Emmers fight where he actually swept him. It's one fight, but that was supposed to be the big wrestler to take him, and it wasn't. So just to say that I don't know that the ground game I think would be interesting. I don't think it gets there in any case. But yeah, I think the pick does have to be Allen. And moving on, we are going to Chris Duncan at 8,300, taking on Gregory Rodriguez at 7,900. Line on this fight: Christian Leroy Duncan minus 130, Gregory Rodriguez plus 110. And this is going to be a fun one where someone's probably going to go to sleep. I think. See, I was gonna say you got to pick Leroy Duncan because he's way more agile, he's way more fluid in the cage. But but he also I don't like his defense. I don't like the way he reacts to strikes. He always tries to rely on the fact that he's the faster man and kind of duck out of the pocket and sort of squirm away. But if he gets cut off by Gregory Rodriguez there, he's going to face some hammers, and I think he can be hit. So this is a tough one for me. I mean, and so much of Duncan's game too is his wrestling, and he's not going to be able to do that here. So you know what? I think I'm going to go RoboCop just slightly. I like the power. I think he's probably the more obviously. I don't want to say polished striker, but like I don't like all the crazy spinny things that Leroy Duncan does. I think a lot of it is style over substance. And again, I think if he can't use his wrestling, then that's a big part of his game that's going away. So I'm going to take RoboCop there. I do think either man can go to sleep. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I'm looking forward to it, but I am taking Rodriguez, and I think we're starting with Drake first. Joe first. All right, Joe, how do you see this one?
It's all right. You started with Drake the last two fights. I'll take this one.
All right,
yeah, I like RoboCop here. My concern here is, well, let me tell you, RoboCop has got a very clear path to victory here. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, he can sub Leroy here. The question is, will he? He sometimes falls in love with his hands. And look, I think he's capable of winning by knockout as well. I mean, this is a very tightly lined fight, by the way. I think it's like plus 114. So you're getting plus 114 at what, 7.9K? I kind of like it. I think it's a great GPP fight. Have both sides. I like RoboCop a lot, but I am hoping that his corner, screams into his ear, take him down and use your jiu-jitsu. Like, do not get into a prolonged striking exchange, because bad things can happen if you do that, and you are so much better than Duncan is in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So that's the path I would take, and if he takes that path, I love him in this spot. I love him at plus 114 and 7.9K. If this turns into a striking affair, toss a coin. Like, you want both sides of this. So if you feel he's going to fight the right game plan, load up on RoboCop. If you think he's going to fall in love with his hands, take shares of each guy. But I'm going to pick RoboCop for the win.
Yeah, I will say there was a reason why I was having such a hard time in hemming and hawing, and that's because I don't think that we can count on Rodriguez to wrestle, although he did score 2 against Barat Tavares there, and that was the first time he scored at least 2 takedowns in quite some time, so maybe things are looking up, who knows. But we'll go to Drake here next. Drake, how do you see this one?
I think this is a horrible matchup for RoboCop.
Wow. All right.
I think CLD just punishes the absolute shit out of him, and I think it goes fast. RoboCop, we've already seen he just eats shots, eats them. He gets hurt. He gets give me CLD all day. It will be a knockout in the first 2 rounds.
Wow, I like that, because that's a bold statement in a fight where I think most people are going to think like me and Joe, where they're going to think, this way, that way. So, if that's the case and Drake proves prophetic, then I think that's a lot of, probably scarcity on CLD, because I think the distribution is going to be pretty split between him and RoboCop in this one. But I can see it. He definitely stands straight up. He definitely gets hit. So we will see how that goes. Okay, next fight. It is one of my most look forward to fight, if that is a phrase I can say. It is they call him, they literally changed his name to King. That's why I didn't.
He changed his name to King.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I've never seen it in DraftKings before. But I was like, what's K? What is that? Okay, so it's King Green at 8,200 taking on Paddy Pimblett at 8,000. Line on this fight, and Fight Odds still has his name as Bobby. So it is King Green at minus 118, Paddy Pimblett minus 102, and Why are these odds so close? Paddy Pimblett gets hit hard by gusts of wind that fly into the octagon while he tends to be there. Bobby Green is such a smooth striker, such a slick striker. Is he a knockout puncher? No, but he can knock you out if you're wide open and you're just wild. We saw that with Grant Dawson. He can teach lessons. He's going to teach a lesson here. Paddy Pimblett charges forward and swings like a rusty gate. That's not the same thing as like a Drew Dober or a Jalen Turner, who are going to use smart pressure and really make him uncomfortable and then knock him out. That's not what Paddy Pimblett's going to do. And Bobby Green has always been an underrated wrestler, an underrated jiu-jitsu player. Sure, he got subbed out by Islam Mokaev. Who doesn't? The strength distribution was just too much there. I don't worry about that happening here. I really don't. I've been waiting a long time for Paddy Pimblett to get fraud checked. We almost had it against Jared Gordon. I think we should have had it against Jared Gordon. I think he was clearly robbed in that decision. But I think we're going to do it here. Bobby Green is what I would class the elite gatekeeper. Yes, gatekeeper. Yes, he's never going to fight for a title. But if you're not a very good fighter, you're not going to beat him. And Paddy Pimblett is not a very good fighter. So I am taking Bobby Green all over him in this spot. And now we will start with Drake. Drake, how do you see this one?
Paddy.
Come
Paddy.
on. Oh.
Paddy the Paddy. Let's go.
All right,
I there is a lot of reservations with this fight. One, him being out of the ring for a year and a half. That said, he looks better than he ever has. But you mentioned that, he gets hit by a gust of wind and whatever, but he hasn't been knocked out. Could it happen? Yeah. But I actually think that what we'll see here is a different type of Paddy because he knows who he's going against. And if Green comes out and fights like he did against Jim Miller, he is going to get squashed. That fight where he just kept his hands down the entire time, you can't do that against everybody. So if he does that again, something's going to happen. He's either going to get knocked out or he's going to get choked out. But this is like you said, this could be that fraud check fight. This could be the fight where, Paddy gets put under and he goes away. I still am a firm believer that he has the potential to rise in this division. This is the fight that can make or break that. So I'm on Paddy.
Well, he could change his style, but I think he's too arrogant for that. Remember, this is the guy who, when Joe Rogan said that was a tough fight with Jared Gordon, he said, no, it wasn't a close fight, Joe. So I think this kid is in La La Land.
Supposed to say that.
Not right after. Right after is when you're supposed to be honest. Then later in interviews you go, oh yeah, that was the fight. You know what I mean. But I think he's got to mind his P's and Q's here. And it's not like he's a good striker. Like, yeah, he's long and he's powerful, but like he's not like a crafty striker. And I just think Bobby Green's going to be ready for it. But we shall see. Joe, how do you see this one?
Oh, I think so little of Paddy Pimblett. I think he is. Joe. I don't think he's got much talent at all. Here's the thing. He actually, then this, I love narrative. I love my narrative. I'm a narrative better. Apparently, I heard that he watched that fight after the Gordon fight and realized that he lost.
Really? Okay.
I also heard that 3 weeks ago, his managers were going to pull him out of this fight for depression.
No, I also saw that as well, which is also
I think Bobby Green, he's faster than Paddy Pimblett. I think Bobby Green is going to piece him up. And even though he doesn't have a lot of power, I could certainly see him getting a late finish. I love the line. I love the fight. I think I think Pimblett is so overrated. It's scary how overrated he is. He even talked about, and here's the third, there was 3 pieces of narrative. One was that he watched the fight and realized he lost, which depressed him. 2, he was going to get pulled out of the fight by his management for depression. And 3, he publicly stated that he thought that his career trajectory was going to be in influencer fights, not UFC, not MMA. like influencer fights, like the Jake Pauls of the world, so all of that to me against a professional fighter who's fought the best. I think Bobby, I think King Green is going to step up here. I really like him. I like him in DraftKings at 8.2K. I don't think a late finish is out of the question, but I would be surprised if he doesn't piece up Pimblett here.
So it's a lot more fun ragging on a guy when he's a cocky prick. If you're going to tell me he's been battling depression, then I feel kind of bad about some of the stuff I said, and I hope he gets better, but I do still think he gets knocked out here. But we're going to move on to the co-main event now, which is Tom Aspinall at 9,400, taking on Curtis Blaydes at 6,800. Line on this fight is minus 400 Aspinall, plus 300 Curtis Blaydes. And Curtis Blaydes kind of has the falling in love with my hand syndrome. Kind of well-deserved. I mean, his boxing is getting better. There's no question about it. But there are times when he needs to wrestle. And he didn't shoot nearly enough in that Sergey Pavlovich fight. Stood for way too long and just got pieced. And what I am worried about here is in that first fight, as short as it went before the knee, Blaydes was having success in the striking. So if he takes that one little segment and says, then it's gonna encourage him or dissuade him, I should say, from wrestling even more. So I can't trust that he's gonna stick to the game plan that he should, which is just wrestling. I almost feel like in these spots he doesn't know when he's supposed to shoot and when he's not against these big hitters. Perfectly exemplified, of course, by the Derek Lewis fight, where he waits and then shoots into an uppercut. So I think he's too tentative. I think he wants to strike too much anyway. And I think Aspinall is too fast and too much of a better striker. And, if he got it to the ground, Aspinall is good at jiu-jitsu, so it'll be interesting to see what his actual bottom game is like. We haven't really yet, but it will be interesting to see. But all that is to say, the line may look wide, but I basically agree with it. I think Aspinall is going to run here and like him a whole bunch. And we will start with Joe for the co-main event. How do you see this one?
Yeah, I actually don't like the line. I mean, I'm so tempted to take a flyer with Blaydes, but I'm going to go with Aspinall here. I just don't think the line is very bettable. Again, this is a rematch for those of you that don't know. Aspinall hurt his knee. And I heard that the preferred opponent here was Cyril Gane, and Cyril Gane turned the fight down, not Curtis Blaydes. So I don't know why he would rather fight Gane than Blaydes. But yeah, I really want to take a shot with Blaydes. And I think that for DraftKings at his price point, you've got to take a few shares of Blaydes here. I'm going to pick Aspinall for the win, especially at home. Yeah, I would be shocked if, I think, what is it, like minus 500 to, stay inside the distance or some crazy number like that. I think you should probably play Aspinall by knockout and get a little bit better. I don't see Aspinall subbing Blaydes. I don't see him winning a decision. So I think you get a slightly better number if you take Aspinall by knockout. Also, I see Blaydes, if you like Blaydes getting, playing a finish as well, maybe, take Blaydes by finish and really get a juiced up line. But I'm going to take Aspinall here. If you're betting it, play Aspinall by knockout.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree that you should take some shots on DraftKings as well, just in case the wrestling does come into play. But Drake, how do you see the co-main event here?
Aspinall is the best heavyweight fighter in the division.
No question.
And it's not close.
Yeah.
Blaydes is what he is. He's a solid fighter. There's no doubt about it. He's had a really successful UFC career. He's got a lot of really nice wins. But like even in his last fight, if Almeida had any bit of fight IQ, Blaydes would have lost that fight. People forget or haven't really seen because they don't know Aspinall. Everybody knows Aspinall for charging in and just putting your lights out. But he's got a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He knows he's got a ground game. He can wrestle. He can take you down. He can do all of that. I don't think there's anything that Blaydes can do to stop Aspinall in this fight. And after what we saw Aspinall do to Pavlovich, I don't know how anybody could not get run through by him. That power is just incredible, and he's so pinpoint perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's an interesting point, too, to say that, look, who's to say that Aspinall can't try to wrestle offensively here? We saw Blaydes get really dominated in that first round wrestling Almeida. Why couldn't Aspinall try to put the wrestler on his back where historically pure wrestlers are their weakest because they're not on their backs all that often? So I really think that all that together, I think Aspinall is just really a strong player. Over 5 rounds if it gets there, but it won't. Probably like a second, maybe late first round, early second round stoppage. And I like Aspinall to kind of just pile on the points. But we will now move to the main event. It is another rematch of another fight that ended due to an injury, which is sort of strange. But it's Leon Edwards, the welterweight champion at 8,800, taking on Belal Muhammad, 7,400. Line on this fight, it is minus 240 Leon Edwards, plus 205 Belal Muhammad. I am happy that Belal Muhammad's here. I think he has earned his title shot. I think he doesn't get a lot of respect. I think he's a good, grimy, grind him out, get him tired, beat him up fighter. I don't think he has much of a chance here. I think the first fight, if we see like a snippet of a first fight, I don't think it always tells the story. But in that fight, I really think it did. I think that for Belal Muhammad to be successful, he needs to really charge in and overwhelm his opponent and get his leg kicks going and get his wrestling going. And Leon Edwards is just a really precise counter striker. He's a really good anti-wrestler. He's good at checking kicks. I just think he's got everything in his arsenal to stifle the game of Belal Muhammad. I think it's a bad matchup for Belal Muhammad. I think Belal Muhammad has a style that works to a certain point and then it doesn't work anymore. And I think he's going to hit a really hard ceiling here. I think we have a chance to see what Leon Edwards can fully do, which is good for him after that dreadful Colby Covington fight, because Belal Muhammad's going to come forward and make it a fight. So I think that's going to be good for Edwards, and I really think he can show up here and really show what he can do as a counter puncher. I like Leon Edwards quite a bit here. I actually don't think a finish is out of the question, even though Leon Edwards does not have many of those. I think this is a good matchup to maybe pinpoint that. So I'm all over Leon Edwards. I really like him in this spot, and that is my pick for the main event. And I think we are starting with Joe. Is that correct? Okay. I appreciate you turning on the light to let us know. Drake, how do you see the main event?
I think Belal Muhammad is a big baby, and I would love nothing more to see his lights just get knocked out. That said, I think this likely goes to a decision. I think Edwards is going to sit there and piece him up the entire time. I think Muhammad struggles to get inside on him. Edwards has the reach advantage. He's got overall, I think he's the better striker. And I think his leg kicks are going to cause issues for Belal as the fight progresses. If Muhammad is able to get this to the mat, I think the whole fight changes. He's probably the better wrestler, and he can definitely keep control down there. But I just don't really see it happening. I think that Edwards pulls this out and just outstrikes him to a 50-40 or a 49-46 decision win.
Yeah, I can definitely see that outcome as well. Like I said, too much going against Belal here, I think. But Joe, how about you? What do you think about the main event?
So I pretty much agree with what Drake said. Again, I do have a little bit of narrative. I mean, it's people who follow UFC like we do probably are not surprised to know that Muhammad has been training with Habib, and they've been training wrestle. So Leon is susceptible to the takedown. I think if Belal can get this fight down, it could be interesting. With that said, I'm going to pick. I went back and forth here. I initially picked Belal, and then I emailed Jake and said change my pick to Leon. I don't think that Leon is a great DraftKings play. He doesn't really. If you look at his record, he doesn't really score a lot. I think honestly, the floor at 7.4K for Muhammad is pretty good. Like I could see him coming really close in a 5-round fight if we think this is going to go to a decision. I think Belal can actually score pretty close to what Leon scores. Not that I'm advocating stacking this fight, but I think the floor is better for Muhammad at 7.4K, even though I think he's probably going to lose the fight. I'm going to pick Leon, but I like Belal more on DraftKings.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. Aggressive fighter. I think Leon Edwards is going to open up a lot of holes in Belal's game just by virtue of that style that I think is going to work against him. But definitely see an argument for the floor there for Belal Muhammad. But that will close out the actual card of the UFC 304 Fight IQ podcast. But we are not done yet because it is time for hot takes. If you're not familiar with the show, we take some juiced up lines here that we think have a better chance of hitting than that line suggests, and we present them to you. I will actually go first, but I think you all know where I'm going to go. It is Bobby Green by knockout. Last I saw it, plus 550, I believe. So kind of a juicy, or 480 was it? Let me go look at it again. I believe it's either 550 or 480. Either way, it is pretty juicy. Let's see. Green, Pimblett, Green wins by plus 475. So right in the middle there. So plus 475. I think that has a way better chance of coming in, as I'm sure you all know by now. But that is my hot take. And boys, do you have hot takes of your own?
I actually do. So I'm going to give you a 3-fighter parlay. I'm going to take RoboCop at plus 114.
Oh,
I'm going to take Aspinall to win by KO, TKO, DQ at minus 175. And I'm going to take Bobby Green by knockout. Sorry, Chris.
No, I said it first. You're fine.
I know. That is a 15-1 parlay. It's plus 15-14 on DraftKings. So I see this as fairly likely, honestly. Obviously, the hardest leg is the Bobby Green leg, but like you could play, you could hedge out maybe a little bit, but if you get RoboCop, so yeah, I'm gonna take this at 15-1.
I think you're putting them on the table there with the including the RoboCop there, not the Bobby Green, but
right. Yeah.
We shall see. Drake, what about you? What about your hot takes for this card?
So I've just got two little solo ones. One is a measly plus 110. It's Preston Parsons and over 1.5 rounds. It's just a solid for me. I mean, I see it as more of like an easy bet, but it is slightly.
I don't hate it.
Right.
And then the other one is just Kiefer Crosby wins inside the distance, which is plus 425.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like that too. Definitely, that seems really wide because that's not going going the distance, and that Sam Patterson gets hit. So yeah, I might have to look at that one myself. So I definitely like those hot takes. And in chat, if you have some hot takes, put them in the chat now. Isaac said this before. I did not forget you, Isaac. I was waiting for just this moment. It is Bobby by KO. I agree with you, sir. May you be blessed and prosperous for all your days.
I love that handle, Isaac Death Rage. That's pretty
Death Rage, yeah.
Pretty effing cool.
That is the Bobby Green mentality coming into this fight. So there you go. I do not see any more hot takes in the chat. We will go once, twice, 3 times, and that will be it. Guys, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you make some money. Follow all of us on Twitter while the fights are happening. I am at the onlyest one. Drake is at D Birds. Joe is at Sun Tzu. We always talk about the fights. We are always silly, and it's up. We got a late one. I will allow it. Trailing Joe, but RoboCop inside the distance. Never a bad idea to trail Joe. I would say usually not a bad idea to trail Joe.
I like it. I
do not hate it. I put it back up there one more time. But that is that will be the show for this week. Thank you all so much again, guys. Give this a like, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It helps us out a lot. And
when is 305? Do we know? I don't want to put you on the spot, Chris.
I do not, but I could look. Hang on.
August 17th.
August 17th. All
right. No, that's not at Spear, right? Is Spear 306?
No, Spear's 306. Okay. But speaking of 305, I will not be here for. I will be on a cruise doing a lot of fun things.
All right.
A cruise?
Yes.
Where now look, can you say where you're cruising to?
Yeah, Mahogany Bay, Belize, and Cozumel.
Whoa.
So, I mean, I could do it from the ship, maybe.
Well,
only if you get free internet, dude. If you have to pay for the internet, then
we're paying for it anyways. So
okay, so if you pay, look, it's up to you. If you want to do it, actually, it'd be kind of cool. Like you go out on the deck with your laptop.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think that let's play it by ear. I mean, we could get a sub, but like if you're up for it and you want to do it while you're on the cruise, that would be pretty freaking awesome, man. I actually did my corporate fantasy football draft last year from Sydney. I was in Sydney for the UFC card, so I had to get up, because it was done at like 5 p.m. Eastern time. So I did my corporate fantasy football draft from Sydney. So yeah, man, Drake out on a cruise with a cocktail in his hand, his laptop sitting out on the deck. I think that gets us a few more viewers, man.
That would be great. And you know what? If it's like too much time to be here for the whole thing, and you just want to do the main card or something, definitely could do that too. You're not
burning all your vacation time, right? Because if I win that contest,
I'm ready. If
I win that contest to go to the Spear for 306, I told you I'm going to offer it to someone at my office first, but I'm pretty sure he's going to say no. His wife won't let him go. So if you're number two, and this is the contest for UFC 306 at the Spear. So if I win it,
all right,
there's a fairly good chance you're getting the call. So.
All right, so I either way, it sounds like Drake is the winner. That's what I'm hearing. But all right, that is going to wrap up the show for this week. Again, thank you guys so much. We will be back next one. Drake notwithstanding, we'll figure it out. But someone will be here next month, I promise, to do the card then. Until then, good luck in all your contests, and we will see you next time.
Peace.